and welcome back to Ascended Masters 101, where we talk all about the teachings of the Ascended Masters. In this video, I'd like to introduce you to one of the cornerstone principles of the Ascended Masters teachings, which is the concept of the 7 rays. It's not a complicated thing to understand, but I love knowing about it because it helps to give us a glimpse of how we fit into God's grand plan. For so long, mankind has tried to understand how God thinks, how God has framed the universe, how everything fits together, and how this all relates to our own spirituality as we seek to become more of God. And I feel like our souls intuitively know that there has to be some sort of framework for understanding God's cosmos and our place within it. Some sort of notches or rungs on the ladder to frame our spirituality as we grow in our own awareness of God. It's like we hardly know how to describe it, but we do know that our souls are looking for order, for context, for the big picture. When I worked in the neonatal ICU, it was common practice in every hospital that I worked at to make nests for our premature babies so that they could feel that boundary around them at all times and be reminded of being enveloped in the womb. Whenever the babies push out with their arms and legs, they immediately feel that secure boundary pushing gently back against them, just like they felt in the womb. And it gives them the feeling of comfort, of context, of knowing where they are in space. And later on, when babies are ready for it, swaddling does this as well. So this is important because it keeps babies from being stressed out because they feel like they're in free fall. Because stressed out babies don't thrive or heal or recover as well, and any neonatal ICU nurse who is worth their salt knows to put their preemies in a nest. And I feel like this is what the 7 rays do for us spiritually. They give us that comforting context for understanding our place in God's world and how we can navigate that world. And once you understand the framework of the 7 rays and you have that context, that secure boundary, it opens the door to understanding so much more of the Ascended Masters teachings. All of these puzzle pieces of spirituality that you thought were separate start to come together to form this grand tapestry of context, of security, of knowing God's spiritual world and our place within it. So the Ascended Masters not only teach us about the framework of the 7 rays, but they also teach us how we can navigate that framework to find our way back to God's heart, how to actually do that on a practical level. So in this video, let's talk about what the 7 rays are first, and then in future videos on this playlist, we'll start hanging more and more concepts onto this framework to build our tapestry of our understanding of God. And the puzzle pieces will start to come together. Now, have you ever hung up a crystal in your window and seen how white light shines through the crystal and reflects many little colorful rainbows onto your walls? My mom had a round crystal that she'd hang in the window when I was little, and I remember dancing around with my brother, laughing and trying to catch them in the air and jump up and touch them on the wall. So spiritually, this phenomenon happens in the exact same way, except with spiritual light. The Ascended Masters explain that when the white light of God passes through the prism of the Christ consciousness, it separates out into 7 spiritual rays of color. And these are the 7 major rays of spiritual light. They are numbered 1 through 7, and each of these rays gives us a glimpse into a different part of the sacredness of God, like a different facet in the jewel of God's consciousness. Each of the 7 rays has a different frequency and therefore takes on the color that vibrates at that frequency. For example, the first ray vibrates at the frequency that the color of blue vibrates at and is therefore known as the first ray or the blue ray. The second ray vibrates at the frequency that the color yellow vibrates at and is known as the second ray or the yellow ray, and so forth. So the 7 colors that correlate with the 7 rays are blue, yellow, pink, white, green, purple and gold flecked with ruby, and violet for the seventh ray. So the first thing to know about the 7 rays is that each ray has its own unique vibration that correlates with a specific color. Essentially, God has color-coded the rays for us, which is very convenient as we move forward. So I think that's a good beginning for our initial orientation to the 7 rays, and in the next video, we'll talk about the God quality, or the virtue that relates to each ray. I will see you there.